All right, good day, everybody. Welcome to Drew's Book Reviews. I've got my good buddy Bookish Chash with me today. We're going to talk the Foundation TV series. This is going to be fun. If you haven't heard about it, honestly, why haven't you heard about it? And this is going to be fun. Both me and Bookish Chash are big Foundation fans. I read the books myself a long time ago, and I'm definitely going to be rereading. Just before we dive into the stream, I want to do a quick reminder to everybody that is watching both on the replay and joining us live that I also will be doing another live stream at the end of the month. Edgar Allan Poe live reading on October 31st. Tune into that. It's going to be a lot of fun. But let's start with Bookish Chat. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your channel, what you do, and yeah, just introduce us.
Cool. Thank you, Drew. Glad to be here. So my name's Chaz, and of course, my channel is Bookish Chaz. I do book reviews and other book related content, some book tags, some why you should read videos. So I've got quite a spectrum of things I cover. I also do an occasional movie review in there, and I might at some point do a board game review on occasion. So I'm just an all around nerd, and that's what I love to talk about. But I primarily love fantasy, sci-fi, and mystery books, so that's what I talk about the most.
Also, I
And
think all of us booktubers are a bit of nerds.
yeah, yeah, I think so. It's one of the qualifications.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that's a requirement. Absolutely. So yeah, that's awesome. Perhaps you can join me when I also plan on doing some streams around the Wheel of Time when that gets released. So I'm hoping to get a few people involved in that as well. Maybe you could join us for that as well, because I mean, Foundation, Wheel of Time. There's so many good shows coming out. Yeah, so
Yes, there
let's
are.
talk about Foundation, and of course, join us in our Discords. I have that link down below as well. You can check out the Discords for both me and Bookish Chass's channels as well. So yeah,
Cool.
let's talk about Foundation, Isaac Asimov's classic. Show, and it seems the reviews have been pretty split so far. I don't know how much you've read on the reviews, but they've been pretty split. I think there's been a few other booktubers. Daniel Green seems to, I mean, he likes Foundation, seems to like the Foundation, but not the adaptation. I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, have you read much of the reviews? What are you feeling about the reviews as they've come out so far?
I've read some of the reviews. I've watched some videos on the reviews, and it's very mixed. I've watched Daniel Green, Quinn's Ideas as well. He does an episode by episode review, and he's not happy.
Yeah,
um,
I feel
but
like this is one of those book series that I don't think. I honestly wonder if it's possible to make an adaptation that's going to get raving reviews on that. I mean, the books themselves are
yeah,
small, but it's literally a series that covers thousands of years of history. It's just
yeah,
one of those expansive things, and at least for me, I think the most important thing is to get the basic idea and concepts of the storyline across in the show. I mean, it's been
mhm.
called an unadaptable series for a lot of reasons, and I think there's probably some good reasons why it's been thought of as unadaptable.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's been too long since I've read the books for me to really say they did this right or that wrong. But I think they're getting the concept and idea behind the show. Uh, I think they're getting the ideas behind the storyline, at least in there, at the very least. I love the look of the show.
Oh yeah,
It's
I love the look of it too. It does have a very at least the parts where they're in the main city. And now I draw a blank on the city name, but it has very Coruscant esque vibes, like
yes.
Star Wars,
The first time I
and I
saw
like that.
Trantor, I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
Trantor, thank you.
Yeah, the first time I saw Trantor in the show, I'm like, this is totally Coruscant. It just looks like that. This
Yeah,
planet-wide city. But I also, one of my favorite worlds that they've portrayed so far is Synax. I love seeing the ring system in the
I
sky of
do
like this
too.
water. That is just so cool. I really like the way that looks. I don't even remember the description of the world from the books. I really need to get back to reading the books. But I love the look of Synax in the series, and I just love the appearance of that. which is
Yeah.
just awesome.
I so I've only read book one, and I don't, as I remember, I don't think there's a whole lot of description of Synax in book one. There may be in the future books, but I am planning to read the whole series, at least the original trilogy, and then maybe I'll delve into his expansion books as well. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty impressed overall with what they've done with it. It is an unadaptable series, I think. Um, I remember watching iRobot with Will Smith, and in the credits it said suggested by the book by Isaac Asimov, and I think that applies to Foundation as well because uh, some things are easier to incorporate than others. The first book
Yeah.
is very much an episodic book, uh, spread out over at least a couple thousand years.
Oh,
So
totally.
it's kind of hard to adapt that,
I I'm almost afraid to read the books now. Again, now that I've watched the series, because I'm afraid I'm going to read the books and like that wasn't Foundation.
right?
But it because I think I have a bit of an advantage here compared to a lot of other people that have talked about this show in a sense because it's been so long since I've read the books. I'm not going into it with that fresh memory of the landscape and storyline and how Asimov presented it. It's
Right.
almost like I've only ever seen the TV show, and so I'm
Mhm.
able to kind of look at that and say, this is TV show. Do I like the show? It's
Yeah.
almost as if I'd never read the books. Maybe that's a bit of an advantage. I don't know. We'll have to find out once I go back and reread the books, which is on my to be read pile for next year. I'm pretty sure I'll get to it next year. I have like 150 books on my to be read pile right now.
Oh
Those are just the
yeah.
ones
Oh
I own, not even the ones I want.
yeah. Yeah. The ones I own are bordering on the 300s. Yeah. It's pretty hard to keep up with,
No, I
and
I feel very lucky this year because my wife said since it's your 40th birthday this year, you could buy as many books as you want. You don't have to buy me anything. But we kind of had a deal where
wow.
for every dollar I spent on books, I had to buy her something as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got a lot more books this year than I do in previous years because of that.
Nice.
But and Foundation was one of those pickups books that I bought this year when I found out Foundation was coming to Apple TV, and I'm like, I got to
Yeah.
buy the books now because I have to go back and eventually reread them. And it's just it's fun TV show. It just coming at it straight from a sci-fi TV show perspective. I love the visual aspect there.
Hmm.
One of my favorite aspects of the show actually so far is the Empire or the Emperors, which they just
Yeah.
refer to as the Emperor. I love how they have the young, the middle-aged, and the old man, which I thought
Yeah.
was just a fantastic representation of the symbology behind one of the key aspects of the whole Foundation series, which is about the past, the present, and the future. Past
Yes.
where you came from, the present where we are right now, and the future where we're headed. And I love how, and I'm just going to say this right now, mild spoiler alert if you haven't watched the show, but I love how the old emperor, he kind of starts to show some deterioration there in
Yeah.
his, cognitive mental faculties. Very
Hmm.
mild spoiler. I won't say more than that, but I like how that's representative because if you don't know what the Foundation is about going into the show, the synopsis will give this away. But it's the idea of galactic civilization collapsing and the Foundation being the only thing left that will possibly save civilization. And so that representation of the old empire collapsing and deteriorating with the new empire being the rise of the new generation kind of thing. I love the representation of the three different clones essentially at different stages of their life. I thought that was so fitting for the very idea and concept behind the show. Loved it. Love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the genetic dynasty is definitely something that wasn't in the books, but or at least from what I've understood, I've only read book one, but it does make sense for what they're trying to do with the show. And I love the way their names too. Brother Dawn, Brother Day, and Brother Dusk. I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool. And it's kind of interesting to me that the newest The youngest one, Brother Don, the new incarnation of Brother Don, he's different.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like up until now, they've pretty much all been genetically alike, and he's probably still genetically alike, but he's more he's more individualistic than the other two are. He seems to have a hidden agenda that we haven't quite seen yet.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out in the long term of the TV show. As I understand, it has been renewed for a second season so far.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see where that goes. Uh, I'll be honest, I'm half expecting at this point them to completely and totally resurrect. I'm afraid to say which character because I worry about spoiling it for some people. But one character, I feel like they're going to resurrect him at some point in the series. I'm not sure if you know who what I'm getting at there.
Well, if and it's hard would not be. Are you not wanting to do any spoilers on the stream?
Well, I'll try to keep them mild at best.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right, fair
Yeah.
warning to everyone watching. There may be some spoilers at some point. This is live, it's unedited. I have no idea when they're going to pop up. You've been warned. All right, spoiler warnings out. We can talk anything we want.
Okay. Sounds good.
There you go.
So, are you referring to Gail?
Not Gail. I was thinking actually Harry Seldon because if you remember on that
Oh,
last episode,
yes. Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of this holographic image
Mm-hmm.
Harry Seldon there. It's like, well, we know cloning technology exists in this galactic empire,
Right.
and so I'm expecting some form of resurrected Harry Seldon possibly before the end of the season. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah.
I'm also especially since she's going back. We know she's going to Harry Seldon's homeworld,
Right.
and then there
Yep.
was that whole scene with the holographic Harry Seldon there
Mm-hmm.
at the last episode. And so it's like, why is she going there? Why is he suddenly popping up here as a hologram?
Mm-hmm.
What's this leading to? And I'm fully expecting a resurrected Seldon at some point.
Yeah, and funny enough, the books subtly hint that that may be a thing,
Yeah,
or the
I
first book.
vaguely remember that from the books. Yeah.
As I was reading it, there were comments that some of the characters made that about the possibility of Harry returning at some point. So there definitely was hints to cloning technology in at least in book one, and so it's a definite possibility. I really liked the last episode, by the way, kind of getting Gail's backstory before she joined Harry.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
it's jumping around all over the place with the
yeah,
timeline. For a minute, there's
all
like,
over
wait,
the
what's
place.
happening?
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, once you realize they're jumping around the timeline, it starts to click a little bit there, which is good.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I, Gail, I'm not sure what I think of Gail yet. I like her character,
yeah,
but and kind of just sit back seeing where's her character going here, and
yeah.
what's happened with that. I do know that in was it the first or the second episode that Harry died there?
The third, I think.
Was it the third?
I'm pretty sure it was the third where he died. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. Like I know Harry Seldon did not live through the entire Foundation series, considering
right.
how expansively long it is. You knew he wasn't going to be around that long. Well, when
Hmm.
that happened there, and I think it's like, what seriously? I'll be honest that if I were to do one criticism of the show, I would say that the motive behind Harry's death was poorly established. I didn't
Yeah,
feel it. I didn't feel it worked very well. They have that one scene where, geez, now I'm drawing a blank. What's his name? The guy that,
Rafe.
yeah, that one scene where he had that little spat with Harry, and the next thing I know, he's killing Harry. I'm like, really? That was really poorly established motive there.
It
Like
was,
it
and I
just was bad. I didn't like. It's like you really didn't do enough. There was nothing to indicate there was that much tension between them, and it's just
yeah.
like, really, that's what tipped him over the edge. Like he seemed to be just fine with Harry until that point. Like really,
Hmm.
and that's I would love to get more of that backstory. It's like, why was he actually motive? Because that one little bit just didn't feel like it was motive enough for that.
Yeah,
I mean, come on, who doesn't have
and I
family fights?
wonder. I wonder if we're going. We may still get some stuff about Rafe going forward because it took them 4 episodes before they finally decided to give us Gale's backstory. So I wonder if we'll get some stuff for Rafe too.
I hope so. That ship that
Yeah.
Gale's on, like it's only Rafe apparently has command authority over the ship,
Right. Yeah.
right? So I mean, there's got to be something there,
Yeah.
and maybe Rafe is the one bringing the ship to Harry Seldon's homeworld, and
Maybe
maybe we'll get
so.
a better understanding of why he did what he did, and
Yeah.
that would be really good because maybe maybe that whole scene where he was having that little spat with Harry was really meant to distract us from the real motive and the real reasons behind what he did.
Right.
Who knows? Either
Yeah.
way, it was poorly done, but maybe it was a distraction.
Yeah, maybe it was a distraction. That's true. I do really like though that they're kind of fleshing them out, like giving us some answers that the books didn't give. Like, after the first section of book one, it's been 50 years and Gale is gone. We don't really know why. Same with Harry. Harry
Yeah,
doesn't live past the first major section of book one, and we're just kind of left to assume that he died of natural causes. So it's
yeah.
interesting to see them taking that and twisting it a little bit. Not quite sure what I think of it yet, but I'm interested.
Yeah, I do know in the books it's never established what ultimately did Harry Seldon in, whether that was natural causes or something else. But just based on how the show's been established thus far, it would make more sense to me that Harry's assassination essentially was done at the hands of the Empire.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
Rafe is an agent of the Empire. There's a good theory.
hmm
Maybe he's really an agent of the Empire.
Well, if you, I don't know if you caught it, but I was thinking the same thing because I think it was brother Day made a very subtle passing comment in one of maybe it was episode 2 that they had someone on the inside. I think so. So maybe it was Rafe,
Maybe. Although, if you're going to be an agent of a Galactic Empire, try to be a little more subtle, buddy.
right? Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Right? No, the one thing I'm really interested in is I don't know, maybe I'm mixing this up with another book series, but I'm pretty sure it was Foundation. At least towards the end, there's some talk of humanity's homeworld, and it's not Trantor, but finding the lost Earth.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure
Huh.
that was Foundation. I know you haven't read past books. See, this is why I need to reread them, but if I'm right, and maybe somebody later will comment and tell me I'm wrong, which is fine. Tell me if I'm wrong. But I think there's some towards the end of the series in the later books, there's talk of, finding the lost Earth, and that was like some kind of like forbidden taboo thing or considered myth and legend, which I would love to see if the series eventually heads in that direction because that would just be
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, I think one of the titles of one of the later books is Foundation and Earth, I think. So
Yeah.
that would make sense.
See that's
Yeah.
why I'm thinking that I'd like the series to eventually head in that direction. And
hmm
and wouldn't that be crazy if, clones of Harry Seldon were hanging out on Earth? I don't
That
think
that
it's
would
likely, but
be,
that would be crazy.
yeah, yeah, that would be, or to find out that the Harry that we've come to know so far was a clone of an original Harry.
Something along those lines. When you have cloning technology, that those types of storylines are so easy to come up with.
Yeah, they
But
really are.
yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the whole Foundation succeeds on Terminus with the conflict that's been brewing there between the different factions and groups and the vault. Wonder when that's going to get opened.
Yeah, I about that too. I was hoping that it would be open by now because they're obviously having a Selden event.
Yeah,
So it's probably about time for the vault to open. Um, and that's the other thing. This whole war with or this whole battle with the Anacrean troops.
yeah,
There's a lot more action in the show than there was actually in the books. The book is so chock full of political maneuvering that there's not a whole lot of action. You hear about action happening in passing, but it's not really at the forefront. So they've
Yeah.
definitely brought the battles to more real time. Um, so
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how they pull this off.
Well, one thing I will say about any adaptation, and I think this is a problem a lot of us book nerds sometimes have trouble overcoming, is the reality that you've got to make changes to
Yeah.
adapt it to screen. You just have to. Now, granted, a lot of adaptations have done a really bad job and just basically make them look like nothing more than a bunch of, fan fiction, basically. And
Shannara.
I want to emphasize,
Shannara.
if you write fan fiction, there's nothing wrong with that, but let's stop
Right.
calling it adaptations. Right?
Yeah.
Because like there's been a lot of adaptations that have been done really poorly just because of the changes they made or the production quality. As far as production quality goes, I think Foundation has really good production quality behind it.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
But
definitely.
definitely, I mean, when you're watching a TV show, a lot of stuff can come if you do it exactly like it's in the books, it could come out as really dry and boring to watch.
Hmm.
It really can. I mean, Ender's Game is a great example of that with the events going back on Earth between Locke and Demosthenes and their use of the internet and all their editorials and stuff going out there. That could be really boring to just watch a bunch of email threads. Reading's very
Yes.
interesting, but to watch it visually is very boring. And so when you adapt stuff, like you could have that kind of email thread communication or otherwise going on in a book, whether that's foundation or anything else. But to try to just put that on the screen is really boring. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
sit there and watch a transcript. And so you have to make changes on how you present what's happening and how the maneuvering's going on. And you have to make those adaptations so that
Yeah.
and those changes so they work. I'd say so far, I'm really liking the Foundation TV series
Yeah.
adaptation. Not perfect, not by a long shot. Some things I think they really should have done better. Like
Yeah.
Rafe, if you're an agent of the Empire, be more subtle.
Right. Yeah, I
Right?
wholeheartedly agree. And I'm with you. I'm really pretty forgiving with adaptations. Even the Game of Thrones adaptation, I was very forgiving with it, even with the final seasons. But there's just some that the changes are so drastic that it looks nothing like it. But I'm liking what I'm seeing so far, though. What did you think of this most recent episode with the hologram of Harry dying on the like bleeding on the floor that she saw in the ship? They didn't really tell us why that hologram appeared to her, but it did.
Well, we know the ship's controlled by Rafe.
Right.
Got that much information. I think Rafe is trying to send a message to Gale there. I think
Mm,
he is perhaps trying to communicate. Like he knows what's going on. Rafe knows what's going on. He at this point only he really knows why he did what he did. Because
hmm.
us as the viewer, I mean, if you're like me and you, us as the viewer say that just motive made no sense. It didn't work.
Right.
So I'm thinking either they did a poor job or there's something else going on they haven't revealed yet. So I think maybe since he knows what's going on, and we know that Gale doesn't have access to information, there's got to be a reason for that. And Rafe might be restricted on what he can reveal. So he's trying to tell her and communicate with her something that he can't just come out and say. Especially because we know that Rafe and Gale had a relationship. If he is
Right.
the inside guy, he's not in a position where he can say, "Hey, by the way, Gale, this is what's going on."
Right.
Right? And so I think maybe he's trying to communicate with her by these like subtle knowing her intelligence with these subtle messages. I mean, we saw how she figured out where she was,
Right.
right? And Rafe knows she's smart and that she could figure this out if he just leaves the right clues while he could simultaneously protect his own interests. So that maybe he's actually trying to help her, even though he's
Hmm.
not supposed to, but he's kind of playing the double agent in that sense. I think that might be part of it. And we'll see. I'm hoping with the next episode she actually gets to Harry Seldon's planet.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
hope so too.
you know, I mean, she thinks they think she killed him.
Hmm.
Maybe Rafe has already done some work to change the idea of the populace there, but of course she's blocked off from all communication. She doesn't know what's going on, so she
Hmm.
only knows what limited knowledge she had from the events that took place. She doesn't
Right.
know what might have changed outside of that because she's been completely isolated, right?
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe she'll arrive to fanfare, and Rafe was
That
behind it all.
that could be. Well, and she has that recording of the ship, which makes it pretty clear that the diplomat guy was the one who framed her, because Rafe
Yeah,
obviously said no, she had nothing to do with it.
yeah,
So we know she was framed by that other guy.
yeah.
So since she has that recording, maybe she'll be able to use that in her defense.
Maybe,
That'd be
or it could have
interesting
been
to see.
Raceway say like she knows the recording's there. Maybe that recording has become public knowledge on Selden's homeworld.
That could be too. Yeah. Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
we just don't know. It'll be really interesting to see where that picks up with the next episode for sure.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think of Salvor Hardin's character so far?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Very different from what I pictured. Well, uh, uh, she's a him in the book,
Yeah,
but I didn't have a problem with that change. That's totally cool for me. Same with Gail. I could go either way.
yeah.
I don't have a problem with gender swapping characters, but yeah, she's got more she's got more ambiguity to her. So she's sometimes not as confident, whereas in the book, Mayor Hardin was very confident and always very stoic and all put together. And so I like that she's got uh, more layers to her character than Salvor Hardin did in the book.
I love a fleshed out, layered character myself. Uh,
Yes, me too.
it's one of the reasons why I love Captain Picard as a character. Like, he's always
Mm,
got that leadership quality when he needs it, and even though he's a very private character,
yeah,
you can tell in those scenes where it's just him or he's speaking confidently with like Counselor Troy or whoever,
yeah.
that even in those scenes he's still very closed off, but you can tell that there's that depth to him, that he's struggling with something, right? So
Hmm.
a later character, I think, just makes for better storytelling. And when we have a like with this adaptation that we're seeing now, if we could take some of those maybe not so fleshed out characters and really add more layers and depth to them, I think that makes for a better story overall.
Oh yeah,
Not that Isaac Asimov doesn't write good stories, but
right.
I think it does make it better and more enjoyable when we can see the depth of them as a character and what they're struggling with. She definitely seems to have some kind of connection to the vault,
I
and
was just thinking that, yes.
yeah, and I am really curious to see what that connection is. Why is she the only one unaffected? Is there an intelligence behind it? I mean, we know there's severely advanced genetic technology within this universe that's been created. So, is it something about her genetics that the vault's in tune to her genetics specifically, or is there intelligence behind it? I don't know, but that vault is going to be interesting because we know that on Terminus, the
Mhm,
Foundation is working on putting all the knowledge of humanity together. But this
mhm,
object, which you can see in the background here,
mhm,
is referred to as the vault. The vault implies a storage center for something, but what's it a vault
mhm.
of?
Right,
You got any theories as
exactly.
to what's in that vault?
Well, if it's what I'm thinking, in the books, that's where everybody, or at least in the first book, that's where everybody enters in and sits down to hear Harry's next prediction, essentially. So in the book, after 50 years, they all gathered into a room, the vault opened, and the hologram of Harry was there giving his next um, pontifications of what's going to happen next. And so I'm assuming that that's what this is, but it's almost like it almost seems like it's more of a telepathic link in the show rather than entering into a physical room, because we had that one scene where she got a flash from the vault and all of a sudden she was in a different room. She was in the library on Trantor,
Yes.
and she saw who I'm assuming is a little Rafe running around in the library.
It looked like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like maybe it's a virtual reality world that they get transported into when the vault actually opens.
Yeah.
So,
And maybe I miss it, but I don't think Salvor is connected with Rafe in any close way,
mm-mm.
at
At least
all.
not that we know of.
Not that we know of. So it's interesting that as far as, so we know that Rafe is responsible for ending Harry's life. We know Rafe is in control of this ship that Gale is on. We know that
Right,
Gale is going to Harry's homeworld, and now we have Salvor who is getting these visions of Rafe as a child.
right.
Where's Rafe? We don't know at this point. It seems like he was captured, interrogated, but there's no indication as to whether he's still alive or not. I think he is still alive.
Well, so I was going to ask you about that because
At
they
least I don't recall a death scene of Rafe.
yeah, they put him out the airlock at the
Yeah.
very end of that at the
Yes,
end of
that's
that
right. They did.
recording. But
But I don't
we
think
all
that's
know,
necessarily the end.
yeah, it because if I mean people have been put out the airlock in the Expanse and they're rescued and everything's fine, so
He was
who
still
knows?
moving in that scene when they cut off. They
He
never actually
was.
showed him die.
Right. Yeah.
So there you go. That's right. The airlock scene. I can't believe I totally forgot about that. But the point is, he wasn't dead when they cut the scene. When they moved to the
Right.
next, he was
That's
still
very
moving.
true.
So what happened to Rafe? Is he really dead? And
Mhm.
it'll. I just have this feeling that he's not really dead.
Yeah, I kinda got that feeling too. At first, I thought, "Well, there goes Rafe," but then I'm like, "Well, maybe not."
Something's going to happen. The ship's going to swing around and collect him on the other side of the airlock or something.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
who knows? I mean, that's part of the fun of these shows is there's so many things out there that, and look, if you watch fantasy, science fiction, you can't assume, especially stuff with a lot of mystery in it, you cannot assume that somebody's dead just because it looks like they're dead.
right. Unless it's Game of Thrones, you can be pretty sure they're dead because
Yes, except for Game of
he
Thrones,
he
but
does
there's
that,
not a
but
lot of
yeah.
mystery there.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, I mean, it's just getting. I think that as each episode goes, it feels like they're building up more mystery, and they answer some questions, but it's like they've answered one, and there's 10 more.
Yeah,
So yeah, where's this going? I really hope it. I hope to see this series succeed beyond 2 seasons.
I do
Personally,
too.
I think that'll be good. I love the timing of it. Like the Apple TV released this just in time for this episode 10 to end the week before Wheel of Time starts.
Yes. Yeah.
Call me a conspiracy theorist, but that's not coincidence.
Right.
They don't want to be competing for viewers.
Right. Yeah.
Although, let's be honest, if Wheel of Time was on now, no one would care about Foundation at the moment. but
Right.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I love seeing these books adapted, and I hope that we continue to see lots of really great adaptations from science fiction, fantasy. It's just great to see this going here because there's so many good sci-fi books that can be adapted beyond Foundation even. Like I would
Right.
love to see an Ender's Game Battle School TV show adaptation. That would be
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, that would be very cool. I would like to see that as well. I'd like to see Hyperion adapted. That's
Oh
another one that would
yes.
be hard to adapt. But
Yes,
if
it
they
would.
did it
Although The
right,
Strike would be a fascinating visual adaptation, I
wow,
think.
yeah, I think so too.
It's kind of mixed. I kind of have mixed feelings on the whole Hyperion Cantos. Like I liked it, but there are parts I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is so stupid." Like really? So I'm kind of mixed on that, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean that would definitely be another really good one that I'd love to see adapted.
yeah,
With any streaming service at this point. Actually,
right.
no, except Apple. Not because Foundation's bad. I just don't like Apple. Bring it
Yeah,
to Prime Video or something. Then I'll be very happy if they do that.
yeah. Yeah, there's so many good adaptations. It seems like Netflix and Amazon are getting the bulk of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that'll be good. Um, what did so? What did you think of Jared Harris as Harry Seldon?
Oh, Harry Seldon. He when I first saw it, it's like, yep, that looks like Harry Seldon. And then I thought more about it. It's like I always have this image of Harry Seldon sitting in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but no beard or anything, but an old man with a nice little blanket around him sitting in a wheelchair. I always had that image of him in my head. And
right,
when I looked at the book covers, I'm like, wait, he's not in a wheelchair. He's just sitting in a chair.
right.
It's not a wheelchair. I don't know why I always had that image of this like futuristic wheelchair thing going on. So
Yeah.
in terms of the look, I think it's a good look overall for Harry Seldon. I think it works.
Hmm.
And I thought that he did a good job portraying the character as a whole.
Hmm.
I liked his passionate speech about what's going to happen and what he's trying to do. And definitely he's set up to be that martyr essentially,
Hmm.
very effectively. And the whole the whole thing with the foundation, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with this as far as story concept goes, is those societies, those governments, those people that are in power, they don't like a threat to their power. Anything is a perceived threat,
Right.
right? And so when someone says, "Hey, look, this is where we're headed as a society, as a civilization," they're going to perceive that as a threat. And of course, they need a
Hmm.
scapegoat, which is going to be Harry Seldon and his followers.
Right.
And he's lucky him and his people only got exiled to Terminus, which by the way
Right.
is a great name for a planet at the edge of the solar
Mhm.
system, right?
It is. Yep.
Right.
It's
Um
a fantastic name.
yep. So I just seeing how he's basically put on trial and he's arguing for his, well, not so much for his life, but for his math. I mean, psychohistory. That's just, I don't know where Isaac Asimov came up with the term psychohistory.
Hmm.
In one sense, I'm thinking psychohistory. Oh, crazy history. But I don't know where he came up with that term, but just the whole idea behind predicting the behaviors of large groups of people, which I honestly don't think that that's such a far-fetched idea. It
No, I don't
really
think so
isn't.
either.
I mean,
Yeah.
so much that we see in our real world science, there's some kind of mathematical equation which can predict the end result. Why should it be
Right.
any different for behavior of large groups of people? Right? I mean, we already have the social sciences, which are devoted to studying groups of people and how they
Right.
behave.
Yeah.
It almost seems like psychohistory could hypothetically be a natural growth of the social sciences at
It
some
does seem
future
like it.
distant date. Uh, so the idea that you could predict groups of people's behavior with a mathematical formula really does not seem that far fetched at all,
Right.
right? And of course, nobody likes to be told that, "Hi, I've got the proof that your civilization's about to end, buddy." And I could see how it would come across as, a threat to a galactic empire who has all the power, right?
Right.
And so it definitely makes sense in that. And it's an interesting dynamic to see the best literature, and this includes Foundation, is literature that expresses these fundamental concepts of the groups
Hmm.
and societies in which we live, that expresses those ideas. There's
Right.
a good story, but then there's a story that really kind of is a mirror reflection of the ideas we see within our own culture. And I think Foundation does that really well
Hmm.
with respect to the story. And Harry Seldon, as a character, both we see portrayed on the screen and in the books, I think is a great character to kind of be the mouthpiece of those ideas. And
I
I really
agree.
like how I love how that's working out in this story. And it's just awesome. This is why if you haven't read Foundation, you've got to read it because there's so much good stuff in this book series. How
Yes.
how do you like the portrayal of Harry Seldon so far?
I really like it. For instance, that first episode with exiling them and everything like that, that was spot on from the book for the most part. I mean, the trial and everything, and how Harry had planned for them to be exiled all along, and that was right there. And I think I love Jared Harris, by the way. He is a magnificent actor. I've loved him in The Expanse, in the second Sherlock Holmes movie. I've loved him in everything I've seen him in, and I think he was the perfect actor to portray Harry Seldon. I really do. I uh, his mannerisms, his way of speaking, everything just feels like a leader like Harry Seldon. And but I think we've gotten more nuance with him too. That whole scene with Harry talking to all the people who were going to be exiled with him, like he it was obvious that he cared for those people and wanted to know each of their names and shake their hands and stuff like that. I mean, you don't see that
Yeah.
in the book really. So and he just portrayed that so well. I thought that was really great.
Well,
So
that's part of why a lot of people I think have said that the books have called the books unadaptable, because there's so much there that you need to fill in with the screen adaptation to make it work.
absolutely. Yeah,
Which I don't think is an inherently bad thing when we're looking at a book series like Foundation. I
right.
think we've got to really kind of plug the holes, so to speak,
Hmm.
with what we're not getting from the book to make it work visually on the
Right.
screen. And I think it's a great opportunity to kind of reimagine those characters in a lot of sense. And my biggest thing when I'm looking at an adaptation, the biggest thing I want is I want the characters to be right.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
don't flip around. Unlike the Sword of Truth, which traded Richard's brother for his father and his uncle, grandpa, mix up, whatever. It just like don't change who the characters are and what their relationships are with the other characters. Don't do that. Like if Gail and Harry Seldon had some kind of romantic relationship, I would be like, no, what the
Right.
heck? Like that would be very, very bad. You want a gender swap? Fine, gender swap, but don't change the characters. Don't change who they are in relation to
Yeah.
each other, to the other characters. Keep them where they need to be, and that for me is important in an
Mm,
adaptation. We could definitely explore those characters more. We can use our imaginations to kind of create more character behind them where it's needed, but let's make sure that the basic plot's there, the storyline's there, the characters are there where they need to be, and the rest, if you want to take creative license, okay, but also be upfront. Like, don't say we're doing the perfect adaptation, we're following it to the T. Don't say that and then don't, because that's going to really annoy a lot of people.
yeah. Yeah. It really will. Yeah. You'll shoot your chances with the fans real quick there.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's one thing you got to expect change, and I think the changes made so far are working for the medium in which they're trying to tell the story,
I
and
think so too.
that's pretty
Yeah.
important.
And I what I like about the way they went about it is they didn't give a whole lot of information until right at the very end. And to my knowledge, all the articles I read, the producers and everything never said, hey, we're intentionally making this like the book. They never told us their process and their desires with adapting the show. So they didn't try to get the fans' hopes up, and I think that was a good thing. Uh, Yeah, because like you said, if they had come out and said, "Hey, we're going to make this an exact adaptation," and then they don't, that would have been bad. So,
Very
uh,
bad.
but I think the show definitely stands on its own. It's got a lot of merit.
Well, here's a good hypothetical for you. Hypothetically, if Isaac Asimov were available to be an integral part of the production team, how do you think the show might be different?
Oh wow, that's a good one. Well, I think the genetic dynasty would go away. I
Yeah.
don't think he would do that. I don't think he would stand for that. But I think some of the other things he would probably be totally on board with, like some of the gender swapping, um, making the show more action packed than the book was. I think he'd be totally on board for stuff like that. So uh, I think I think he would probably like what they did with the vault. It's really hard to say. Asimov strikes me as a very visionary person.
Yes.
So I think he would be very forward thinking if he was alive today. I think he would be like, okay, this makes sense for the day and age and the audience that we're trying to speak to. Yeah, I think he'd be okay with most of it.
Yeah, I would hope so. Because the last thing you want is to make an adaptation you feel that the author wouldn't be proud of if you could honestly avoid it. I think that's
Hmm.
definitely important. I will say one thing about science fiction writers, some of the greats like Isaac Asimov, the future sci-fi worlds that they envision
Hmm.
has some of the most impossible technology. Like the
I
Star
know.
Bridge,
Yeah.
it's a cool idea, but let's face it, I just don't think the laws of physics would actually allow that to work,
Right.
right? Uh, but I mean, I'm no physicist, so who am I to say it's impossible? But I mean, we see impossible technology in so many shows. I mean, like Star Trek, for
Right.
example, has tons of it. But what I like about some of the technology based, like the Star Bridge, for example, unlike other sci-fi shows, I mean, transporters and teleporting are there for just convenience sake and storytelling. But the
Right.
Star Bridge, well, I'm pretty sure it would be an impossible technology.
Yeah.
uh, I think it does serve at a very important part of this story, with the destruction of the Star Bridge. It's the catalyst
Hmm.
for everything that starts happening within this empire, right? And so that's a
Hmm.
key integral part of it. And but it's just the idea of this massive structure collapsing and wrapping around the planet like a choker on your neck just seems
Hmm.
it it's just not possible. I just don't think that's actually possible in the real world. But this is where we kind of sometimes have to suspend our disbelief and just
Right.
accept it for what it is, right? And just visually, though, it's really, really cool
Hmm.
visually.
It is. It's very cool, and it makes sense in some ways. I mean, without something like that, you can't really feasibly transport hundreds of people at once down to a planet from outer space, because you've got burn up going through the atmosphere and stuff like that. Whereas if you've got a direct link through the atmosphere, you avoid all that, and then you can streamline transporting all these hundreds of people down to the surface. So it made sense, but yeah, it would never work, I don't think.
Yeah, I know there's been speculation about the idea of a space elevator, but nothing so tall that it could wrap around the entire planet. Like
Yeah.
that's a bit far fetched to my mind.
Hmm.
Like that is Lesicor's Trantor happens to be a very, very small planet, like the size of Pluto. Okay,
Right.
maybe. But I
Yeah.
don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
pretty
think
sure
so.
it's supposed to be, a typical Earth-like planet, right?
Hmm.
And you know what I hope, just because I think it would make it really cool, is I want to see like a full-fledged war come to Trantor, not just a
Hmm.
terrorist act. Like I want to
Right.
see Trantor ripped to shreds essentially and destroyed as part of what would as the Galactic Empire plummets into the Dark Ages. I want to see that happen while Terminus remains the only civilized planet in the entire galaxy.
Right.
That would be a fun storyline to see eventually evolve with that. And maybe the Anacreons will be the ones to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe so. It's interesting too to see what they've done with the Anacreons, because if I remember right, the Anacreons were the second Selden event in the book, and it was kind of a non-event. I mean, there were, they came to they came to like a standoff, but they never really more or less went through with anything. The first Selden event was actually, if I remember right, it was where Salvor Hardin staged a coup. He's like, I don't know how this is going, so I'm just gonna we're gonna go behind the scenes and we're gonna stage this coup, and that's how he became mayor. But
You think they'll eventually progress the series to the point where the second foundation gets established?
I bet they would, and I kind of wonder if they're going to try and speed that up and bring that about in season two, just on the off chance that they don't get a third season. I hope they don't.
You and me
Uh,
both. I think that would be terrible progression
yeah,
if the first foundation is destroyed after the first season or something, and then second foundation in the second season. I think
right.
that
They
that
they
just
need Foundation and Empire in there in some form or
yeah.
another for season two.
Yeah, absolutely. Get that in there. Let's make sure this is fully established before we move on to second foundation.
Mhm.
And like I said, I hope they eventually get to foundation and earth,
Mhm.
because that I think would be the I think that would be the best way actually to wrap up the TV series.
Mhm.
Is your first foundation, your second foundation, and then eventually finish with foundation and earth, where
Mhm.
earth is back. And I now I don't remember how it worked in foundation earth, but right now I'm thinking it'd be really cool if earth became the new Trantor.
Oh, yeah, that would be yeah, the new seat of the empire? Sure, that would be cool.
That would be really cool, with the new empires spawned from the leftovers of earth after it's rediscovered. That would be cool. I have no idea if that's how it happened in the books. Man, I really got to get back to reading these books.
I
But
do
I think
too.
that'd be
I
really
need to
cool.
get reading into 'em. It's it's been interesting. I know that with some of the newer books that Isaac Asimov wrote after the original trilogy, he tied it into the robot series. And it's really cool to see. It seems like they're trying to incorporate that into the show because they've got the emperor's servant lady, whatever, I
Yeah.
can't remember her name, is obviously an android. uh
Her, her mannerisms drive me up the wall. Or I
they
guess
do
it's because
they do me too.
or maybe we should say it's mannerisms because it's a robot. And honestly, just the way she like always holding herself,
Right.
just
Yeah.
it's like it drives me up the wall. First of all, because I kind of get the impression from the show that people aren't supposed to really know she's an android, only the empires.
Hmm.
But she doesn't carry herself like a person. How do
Right.
people not clue in that this person isn't a person, or there's something off about them?
Right.
Just because she's always carrying herself in this very specific way. And if you're just gonna make an android to trick you into thinking they're human, I mean,
Yeah.
Data was more of a human android than this android is,
Right. Yeah, and
right?
she obviously doesn't die. She's been around since the first Cleon the First, I guess, from what I can tell.
It seems that way, yeah. Which kind of like, well, are you supposed to not know that she's an android? Like, I don't get it.
Right.
Like it's not that they're outright saying this is bad,
No, right. Yeah.
but they almost seem to just be avoiding the idea that other people know she's an android.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, what the heck's up with that? It just doesn't make sense to me. That it seems to be like one of those, the secret that isn't a secret, but no one
Hmm.
wants to admit that it isn't a secret.
Yes.
Maybe we'll get some openness on it. But it's interesting that on Synax, Gale's family referred to Trantor as the machine world,
Hmm.
which I don't know, maybe has something to do with the android and the servants of the empire. Maybe they're more common and widespread than we are led to believe in the show.
Hmm. Could be.
Right. And I actually would have loved if they had gone dived more deeply into that philosophy of anti-machine world, which is almost reminiscent of Dune. I mean, we have the
It
Machine
is.
Crusade in
Right.
Dune
Exactly.
and the Dune universe as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very I'm trying to remember. So this came before Dune, I think, correct? The Foundation Asimov wrote it in the 60s, right? Or
I
no,
I'm not exactly. I'm just gonna find out right now.
yeah, yeah, me too, because
All right. I'm gonna find out right now. 1942. It started as a series of short stories, apparently. In
okay, yeah.
1942.
So if
Whereas Dune, I
anything,
think,
Dune
was
would have taken
was early 80s, maybe.
70s, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So yeah, yeah, a lot of things were
Oh,
in
65 apparently, according to Google. So
okay,
Dune
yeah.
was first published in 65, but Asimov's stories
Hmm.
were definitely before that. So I wonder if maybe Dune drew some inspiration from some of the things suggested in Foundation,
I'm
which
sure
wouldn't
it
surprise
did.
me.
Yeah, so many things have. Star Wars, I'm sure did.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's tons of stuff. I mean, come on, the giant pit monster from Star Wars,
right.
like that's clearly inspired by the sandworms of Dune. How could it not be?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. Yeah,
Just gonna
Star Wars
turn on
definitely
the
took
light.
some things from Doom, but it probably took some things from Foundation as well, and I'm sure Frank Herbert was inspired by some of the stuff in Foundation. So,
Oh yeah, I mean, so much has been inspired by both Dune and Foundation. I think,
mhm,
although I do think Foundation is one of the earlier works that really popularized this type of science fiction,
I think so too. Yeah.
right? Because it's just there wasn't a lot of, kind of like Lord of the Rings started the whole epic fantasy
Mhm,
popularization. I think Foundation has did that for sci-fi. I mean, again, we're looking at
mhm,
books that were written as short stories in the late 30s, early 40s. This is not new stuff. In fact, we're
right,
approaching the century mark on this. At this rate, it won't be long until Foundation is out of copyright,
right.
right? Because it is a epic story, and because of that, I think we have things like Dune. Isaac
Mhm.
Asimov was a literary genius with the stuff that he wrote. Although it kind of makes me wonder how would his stories be different if they were written today versus
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yay,
there's
Epic's just
Epic.
joined
Ha
us.
ha ha. Welcome,
Nice of you
Epic.
to join us, Epic. Glad to have you here. That's awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. He kept saying Epic, so I showed up. well, well, yeah. I mean, Foundation's Epic, so glad you could join us, Epic.
Right?
Totally. Yeah, so yeah, it'd be fun. I really hope that this series takes off. I
Yeah,
hope that it
I do
lasts more than
too.
a couple seasons.
Yeah, I really hope it does too. It's always it's harder, it seems, nowadays because you've got these great series that it just seems like they're not always guaranteed to go on as long as some of the others that we knew that have been going on. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, what was it? Supernatural got like 15 seasons, and you just don't really see that much anymore with some of these newer shows.
Yeah, you just don't. Although I will say I think Foundation is one of those series where it's more effective to create a TV show based on the series, but not necessarily on the books themselves, because there is a lot of room
True.
within those books that you could really tell a good story while holding to the main themes of the story and
Mm-hmm.
following the same general plot, but still being able to kind of make it its own thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're, like I said, they're not the books themselves aren't very long,
Right.
but it leaves a lot of room for interpretation and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of room to like there's a big time gaps between different parts of the story, so we could definitely create a TV series out of those time gaps.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on between? We know where we ended up because we got this over here. We know where we started. Now, what got us to where we are?
Yeah, and I think that that does seem to be what they're doing well. They're definitely hitting the major beats. They're the world building, like we've got Terminus, we've got Trantor, we've got the vault. We know that a Selden event is coming where the vault's probably going to open. So it seems like they're hitting all the major beats that they need to for it to be Foundation without being so strictly tied to the rest of the book.
I think the
So,
best thing would be to have the vault open in this season finale.
oh yeah, I agree. I
And not
totally
even at the
agree.
beginning of the episode. I think they should
Yeah.
just lead up to it. It opens, roll the credits. And then you're like,
Oh, cliffhanger,
and then you're like,
right?
"Oh, now I gotta watch season 2." That would be the best way to do it, I think.
It,
Uh,
it it does make sense,
like,
but you're killing me,
it's
Drew. I want to see everything in that vault and what happens. But yeah, it
but
makes sense,
that would be so awesome. That would be so epic, and I'm saying epic because epic's here.
right?
Like, that would just be an epic way to do it. I think that would be the best way to end the season. Not opening at the beginning of the last episode, but have the last episode with it opening. And I think if anything, that's going to get people to want to tune into the second season because it'd be like, oh my
Right.
gosh, the vault's open. Now what? Oh man, I got to wait till season two. Are you kidding me? But it's going to bring people back into season two to find out what happens now that the vault is open. I can't think of a
Right.
better ending for season one.
Yeah, that's true. And you may be spot on there. That may be exactly what they're planning. Because it
I hope so.
seems like they've been leading up to it opening for a while. But yeah,
Yeah,
now
the
I'm
the
thinking you may be right.
invisible fence has been expanding, so that's
Yeah,
telling us something's going on with the vault.
right.
And I think that that fence is going to eventually expand to the entire planet, and that's going to be the
Hmm.
point where the vault opens.
Hmm.
Which leads to the question: what happens to the people on Terminus?
Hmm.
Because as we know, only Salvor is the only one that isn't affected by this fence.
Right. Yeah.
So what's going to happen with that? We know the Anacreons are there. I mean, I don't think they're just going to tuck tail and run.
Right.
They're going to be involved in this somehow. And if we notice the vault's fence started to expand
Hmm.
right about the time the Anacreons were starting to show up.
Right. Yeah, it did.
So it seems to be linked, and I'm thinking maybe like there's got to be some kind of intelligence, whether that's an AI or otherwise, behind this vault,
Uh-huh.
which maybe it's the vault trying to push the Anacreons away.
That could be. I hadn't thought about that.
But like any kind of AI necessarily, it doesn't stop to think, well, what if I hurt the people I'm not meant to hurt? It's just thinking
Yeah.
I need to protect myself.
Yeah. Hmm.
It doesn't matter what the consequences are. The only person that matters is Salvor anyway. I don't care about the rest. Because
Right.
obviously it's not affecting Salvor, right? So I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. I'm
Yeah,
thinking it must. And
it
that
it
might be,
must. You're right. Yeah. I could definitely see that.
I can
And
see
and
the vault. Yeah.
I was thinking something like super technical, like maybe as the fence expands, maybe it's drawing oxygen from the atmosphere to power itself up to open. But maybe it's a lot simpler, just like you were saying. Maybe it's trying to push the Anacreons away. That's not a bad theory.
Yeah, because I mean, we
I
know the Anacrons are up to no good. I mean, they're certainly
right,
not there to say, "Hey, we're here to help build you into an awesome city and civilization." That's not what they're there for. They're after something, and
right.
they they know the vault's there,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure they're after the vault ultimately,
Yeah, most likely.
right? And then, of course, their interests cannot possibly be aligned with the Foundation. Um, and just in my imagination, I'm imagining the people of the Foundation, the settlers there on Terminus,
Hmm.
somehow hijacking the Anacrean ship, escaping the planet, just as the vault kills off all the Anacreans,
Hmm.
opens up, and then the season ends or something like that. I'm just
Hmm.
imagining things on how I would write a series like this myself, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's good. I think you're right on there. I have no doubt you're pretty close to how it's actually going to end. Because if it's been renewed for season two, they're not going to want to give us everything.
Oh, definitely. I would be mad if they gave us everything. Of course, I'll be mad at
Yeah,
being
I would
left on a
too.
cliffhanger and I'm having to wait a year for the next episode. But
Yeah,
in my opinion, if you can make your audience pissed off, they have to wait. I think you've done a good job.
I agree.
Because
Yep.
if you give away all the answers, your audience is going to lose interest for what's coming up next.
Yeah.
You want them to be seething to get more, and you want them to be thinking, how could you leave me hanging like this?
Mhm.
I remember growing up watching Next Generation and that Best of Both Worlds episode where Riker gives the order to fire on the Borg ship with Locutus, and then boom,
Yes.
it's like, wait, that's the end of the season. I have to wait.
Right.
That's what we want to see from any good show. Is you want to leave it hanging in suspense like that, so your
Yeah.
audience is just like itching to get to the next episode. And I really hope that they do that with Foundation. They really leave you burning to get to that next episode.
Yeah, they do.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Hopefully not too long a wait.
Yeah. I think they've set up some really good plot lines that are making it really interesting now.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like if they wrap it up satisfactorily and whet our taste buds for what's coming, I think it'll be, I think it'll end good. I'm looking forward to it. We've got, uh, we have 4 or 5 episodes left. Is it 9 episodes
It's
or
10. Yeah,
10?
I think there's
10.
five
Okay,
more
yeah.
left.
So yeah, we've got half the season left.
That reminds me, one of the reasons why I think Raish isn't dead, he's in
Hmm.
control of everything. He could have manipulated the video footage to make Gail think he's dead, so that Gail
Oh,
could try to move on to what she needs to get done without being hung up on looking for him, but he's really alive.
oh, I didn't think about that. That's true.
I mean,
Yeah, that's very
if he's
true.
in control of the ship, he programmed everything she gets to see in there.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially now that I'm thinking about it. At that one point where they had closed the blast doors and they
Yeah,
were getting ready to vent him out into space, he was looking right at the camera and talking to her. I mean, you could tell he was
yeah.
talking to her. So yeah, maybe
Gail needs to
he's
do something, and she can't be distracted by Raish being
right.
around.
Hmm.
So it could be Raish's way of making sure that Gale thinks he's dead. So when they get reunited later, and of course, for everybody watching, this is all pure speculation. It's not based
Right,
on anything. But when they're reunited later, then we then it's just going to be this massive moment, this big moment for them both.
right.
And of course, I think Gale, that image of Harry Seldon dying, I think Gail is going to probably investigate that with every
Yeah,
tool at her disposal because she's going to want to know what's going to happen. And I think Rage wants her to know what's happened, but he can't tell her.
right. Hmm.
So that is going to be, that is a storyline. I so there's two big storylines: Gale and Rage. Gale going to Selden's homeworld, and Terminus and the Vault and what's happening there. And I think they're all going to come together eventually. I'm
I think
hoping
so
not in the
too.
first season because I think at least wait till the second season would be best, I think, because having those storylines merge
Hmm.
in the second season would make a really good second season, I think.
Hmm.
But we're
I
flipping
agree.
between them both, so they're related,
Right.
and it'll be really awesome to see how that goes. I'm really look for. Damn you, Apple TV, making a
Right?
show that I want to see. It's funny. I had Apple TV for a while, but I canceled it before Foundation came out because I'm like, I really don't care for Apple, and they don't. I know Foundation's coming, but do I really want to pay for this just for Foundation? And I'm like, damn you, Apple, I gotta pay for it now.
Right? Yeah, but for me, when I saw Foundation, was coming to Apple TV. I'm like, take my money. Here you go. Yeah, take my money.
Just shut up and take my money. That meme, right? No doubt. Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
and everybody and their dog had some. It's funny because I work in the cable industry, right? And everyone's like, "Well, who's really paying for cable now?" I mean,
Hmm.
there's enough people, but it's funny when I'm talking to people. I'll say, you know what? It is funny because honestly, I pay more for streaming services than I do my internet and TV combined now.
Right. Yeah,
And
it's
don't get me
getting to
wrong,
that
there's
point.
so much good content. The content is worth paying for,
Oh
but it's
yeah.
funny when you think about it, because so many people, I mean, you talk to your families or friends, say, "Oh, is paying for TV worth it?" And a lot of people are like, "No, cable ain't worth it." And then it's like, "Well, how much you paying for Netflix, YouTube Premium, Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus, Apple TV?" You got BritBox, you got all kinds of stuff now,
Right.
and you add it up, and it's a whole new cable bill. But there's such good stuff on
Yeah.
these platforms, and I know there's a new series, Invasion, coming to Apple TV as well, which looks interesting. I saw
Yeah,
that
that
commercial.
does.
I saw that commercial while I was watching, or it came popped up when I was about to watch, because Apple TV is the only one that actually really advertises a lot at the beginning of their shows, which they're the smallest player in the market right now, I think. So I can kind of understand that.
Yeah,
But I saw the
definitely.
ad for Invasion right before I was going to watch the Foundation episode, and I turned to my wife and I said, "Damn you, Apple!" She's like, "What?" It's like another show I have to watch.
Right? I'm curious to watch C as well. I haven't watched that one yet.
Interesting to know about C. That show is actually filmed right here on Vancouver Island, where I
Oh,
live.
is it? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. First season was good.
Wow.
I haven't gone to the second season yet,
Okay.
but I have watched the first season. It's not bad. Post-apocalyptic world where nobody can see except two people that are magically born with sight, and all hell breaks loose.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
It looks good for sure. Um, but yeah, there's so many to pay for. That new, I'm not sure if it's a movie or a TV series with Tom Hanks. It's a sci-fi, like
Oh,
he
that
has
Tom
this,
Hanks one with the robot
yeah, with
dude.
the robot. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw an ad for that too.
Uh,
I might watch it.
yeah, I might watch it too. I like Tom Hanks. So there's so much
I
to
mean, I'm paying
good
for
to
Apple
pay for
TV.
there.
Might as well see what
Mhm.
else there is after Foundation's done until the
Exactly.
next season comes out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Foundation is the main draw for me, but
Yeah.
there's some others I'm interested in. So,
Yeah. Well, I Foundation seems to be like their big ticket item right now.
mhm.
So I wonder if Foundation is going to be, or Apple's kind of going to become the go-to for sci-fi adaptations. I know Prime Video has The Expanse, but now
Yeah.
they're doing Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time. Like
Mhm.
they're putting big budget into fantasy,
Oh yeah, totally.
right? And then, well, Netflix seems to be getting the leftovers. Yeah, they got The Witcher, but everybody else is buying out the big name stuff.
Yeah.
Never mind
Well,
Disney and their Star Wars stuff, but it feels like Apple TV might be leading into trying to adapt a lot of sci-fi.
yeah, it does feel that way. And who knows, maybe they'll pick up Hyperion next. I
Well,
know I know
if
I
they
know
do,
no
we'll have to do a stream about Hyperion.
yes we will. Yeah, cuz that's my Hyperion and Fall of Hyperion, that dual saga is my second favorite sci-fi of all time. I like it that much.
Oh, I have
So,
a hard time deciding my favorite of all time. If you were to ask me what are the best science fiction series ever written, I mean, Foundation would be up there. Dune would
oh
definitely
yeah.
be up there.
Yeah, Dune
Uh,
is my absolute favorite for sci-fi.
I
Yeah.
used to want stuff adapted to movies, but I'm like, no, you got to do it as a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah,
I,
I
I
think that
really
would
think a TV series works better for so many of these.
it does. And even though, like, when they did Dune on the Sci-Fi Network, I don't know if you saw that adaptation of it.
I have
Uh,
seen it, yeah.
yeah, it was, as far as an adaptation of the story goes, it was very well done. The costuming was a little hokey, but the overall it was quite well done, and I thought it did Dune a little bit more justice. Well, compared to the David Lynch movie, anyway. I'm
Oh,
excited for the new movie. So,
forget
but
about we don't talk about the David Lynch movie.
oh, I do. I like it, but just not as an adaptation. It's yeah. I
Oh man, I saw the David Lynch movie and I was like, I couldn't even make it through. I shut it off. I
yeah.
just couldn't watch it. I'm like this is just
That's the one I grew up with. I didn't read Dune until I was in my late 20s, and so but I grew up watching the David Lynch movie. So
Well, honestly, if you'd never read Dune in your life and didn't know anything about it, you might enjoy it
yeah,
without really
yeah,
knowing. But I watched it long after I read the books, so it was just like ugh,
yeah,
that was not good. Which is maybe why I'm glad I watched Foundation before rereading the books, so that
yeah,
I could kind of come into it with like a clear, unbiased, uninfluenced perspective on how well the show was done. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think they've done a really good job with the cinematography, the imagery, the storyline, the plot's being set up quite well.
yeah.
And I really love the creative choice of the three empires there.
I do
I think
too.
I think that's just fantastic. Love that creative choice.
I was going to ask you, since you've seen the Dune miniseries that the Sci-Fi Network did, I don't know if you felt this way, but I felt the costuming in Foundation was very similar in its approach, very very extravagant, very like gaudy in many ways.
Some of
Uh,
it, yeah, definitely.
yeah. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh, they kind of pulled the Sci-Fi Network on this.
Well, Apple isn't a production company. They're
Right.
hiring out to production companies to do. Same with Amazon. Like they're not
Yeah.
TV
Right.
studio. They're hiring TV studios to do it and say we're going to
Yeah.
give you all this money, make this show, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
They're just the
Exactly.
funder behind it. But yeah, I mean, definitely some of the costuming, especially that robot servant. per
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, her dress is something else.
It's just,
Uh, yeah.
yeah, it's just, although I'm still trying to figure out what that mural has to do with anything. I know it's got to be involved. That mural that
Mhm.
the artist was constantly working on. There's
Yeah.
something about that. I know that it's involved somehow. I don't know how that ties in, but there's been several scenes with that included.
Yeah, there have, and, going back to, Brother Don and his, I mentioned earlier, it seems like he has an agenda. He had it erased.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that mural has to have something to do with it. I think you're right. Yeah,
Yeah, and I will say Harry Seldon's cube with the math hologram popping up, it looks nothing like math. I don't know how they're
right.
looking that and interpreting any data.
I
I
don't
mean,
either.
I saw that. The first time I thought, okay, cool. The second time I started thinking, this has nothing to do with mathematics. The third time thinking, they're just doing this to make it look fancy and pretty and nice. Like,
Right.
I don't see how they're interpreting anything from this.
Yeah,
Like that's just really confusing the way that was presented. So there's
I
my other
agree.
criticism is the whole holographic psychohistory mathematical projection thing. Just it doesn't look like I would think it should.
Yeah.
We're talking mathematics. Where's all the equations?
Mhm.
It's just a bunch of fancy lines in different shapes. It seems.
Right.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I mean, so far, great show, and I think it's definitely worth watching. So I think we're getting to the point where we're about wrapping up the stream.
Yep,
Uh,
think
but
so. Seems that way.
yeah, and overall, if you're watching this on the replay, thanks so much for watching. Read the books
Yes, do.
and watch the series. Don't watch the series thinking it's following the books precisely. It ain't. But it's still a really good series, both in terms of the visual medium and the books. Isaac Asimov is a fantastic writer,
Yeah.
and it's just a really great story all around. So I highly recommend check out the show, check out the books if you haven't already. Check out Bookish Chas's channels. I have all that linked below, as well as the Book Dragons Discord. So you know subscribe to Book of Shash, subscribe to both of us, like, comment, subscribe, join us on the Discord, and it's great fun. We have great chat about everything book related and bookish content, so check that out. And as always, keep on reading. Any final thoughts or words there, Bookish Shash?
No, I think we covered a lot. I think this was just a great discussion. I'm so glad you had me on. Thank you, Drew.
You're quite welcome. Glad to have you on. And of course, as a reminder, tune in October 31st. Time of day to be determined. I'm hoping for an afternoon stream for a live reading of Edgar Allan Poe on Halloween Day. And I'm just going to say that I will not be looking like this when I do the stream. So if you want to check it out, you want to see what I'm looking like during the stream, you better tune in. And as always, until next time, keep on reading. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.